Well, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, it's webinar time, one of my favorite times of the week, always. And today we're dealing with a subject that I have to be honest with you, I do not run into a retailer or talk to a retailer on the phone that at some point the conversation, if we're talking about their business, doesn't get around to digital advertising, because it is the thing everybody's thinking about and trying to maximize. And so the title today, and I want to point out the keyword we put in here. The team says key strategies for successful digital advertising. Notice the word successful. That is, everybody that's signed up is like, they want to know what the secret sauce is. They want to glean whatever they can. And so that's what we're going to get into today. And with a great panel that we've got. I'm going to introduce them in just a second, but I have to do my housekeeping real quick. A reminder, on the right side of your screen, if you have any questions, a lot of you sent them in advance. If you have a question, there's a chat box, pop it in there. Our team is monitoring that. We'll do our best to get to it. Secondly, this webinar and all the others that we do on a regular basis are at myhfa.org/webinar. You go there and it is a storehouse for fantastic information. Share it, show it to your teams. This is what so many people are doing. So if you see this today and you're thinking, man, I want to bring this back to my team, or I want to share this at some point in the next week or two, you can do that. So we will send those links out to you guys. You have, just remember, myhfa.org/webinar, and you got it. All right. Let me introduce you to the guests that are that put me in fourth place as the smartest person on this call. So that's how good this panel is today. We have Kate Gallagher. Kate is the Vice President of Client Success at Phelps Digital. Kate, thank you for being here. They're very much into navigating all the digital landscape. So it's great to have you here. Appreciate it. We also have Stephanie Geary here. She's the marketing manager for Old Brick Furniture. They've got a number of locations up in the Albany, New York area. So Stephanie, appreciate having you here. And Freddie Wright is the digital director for Conquest Digital Solutions. So we've got a couple of really great experts here today. And we've got, of course, an end user in Stephanie being here to really talk about a lot of the boots on the ground, if you will, when it comes to digital advertising. So everybody, thank you so very much. I always like to kind of start with a very broad question and then get into these incredible number of specific questions we've gotten. So let me ask this one, and I'm going to start with Kate. Kate, let me ask you this. We just used that word, successful. Define that right now as far as digital advertising and digital advertising campaigns. Define success so we know what you see that meaning in the day-to-day operations for a member retailer.
I think that is having a clear idea of what your actual goal is from your campaign. There are a lot of different outcomes that you can reach with digital marketing. So understanding what you're actually trying to achieve and then measuring that every single month is going to be what drives you towards success for that particular goal.
So as one of the favorite lines that one of our key members here at HFA always talks about is you can't measure what you can't manage. And so when you have goals, you can at least manage what you're doing. So I love that. Clear goals, great start. Stephanie, what about you? What would you say success means? Short definition of that.
I have to go off what Kate said and say measurement, definitely. What good is the advertising that you're doing if you're not measuring it? So you really want to define those goals and then how you're going to measure them and what's important to you in everything that you're doing.
Okay. And by the way, if anybody wonders why I'm looking down, I'm not distracted. I'm taking notes, old school, got the pen. What can I tell you? Freddie, successful digital advertising. Define that for me.
I think clear goals, yes, but always being willing to change with the new technology. There's always something new. So, we hear about all the technologies, the OTT, the social mirror, the geofence, all of these things. There's never really one that is a true success. No two markets are alike. So it's always being willing to give those a test and a try and see what works for you.
So it's very clear that the one thing we're saying here is you really need to know going into it. So I'm assuming that this means it's not just sort of that scattergun, throw it out there approach, that you do want to have a goal. So let's kind of peel this onion back before we even get into these questions. So with that in mind, Kate, when you talk about having clear goals, clearly, and this is something that does come up in these questions, it's about knowing your audience. So right now, what are the most effective ways you can do that? Because there's a lot of our members that still struggle with the standpoint of they might know what their customer looks like, but they're not sure what that digital audience looks like when it comes to the advertising. So let's start there. How do you help them identify that?
think the best way to look at that is to use your analytics. Whether you're looking at analytics from your Google business profile or using analytics from Google Analytics, all of your demographics are in there. So you can go in and find out exactly who's coming to your website and by what source. And I think that your organic traffic is a great way to benchmark exactly who your most common type of user is. So if you are looking at your geography for your organic traffic, you can see where they are coming from, so you know what opportunities you have to hit geographically, you know where to target your campaigns. You can see age group, you can see what type of device people are using, but I think that really that will give you a really great jumping off point to understand who are your most common visitors already, and if you know who you're already hitting, that's who you want to put paid advertising into.
And I love what you said there, because you used a lot of great words here. So when you're talking about organic traffic, and that means, you know, what am I just doing right now that I might not think is specific for digital advertising, but that's working? So who is that? So Stephanie, is that ring true for you too? Do you guys sometimes look at what the organic traffic is before trying to design, you know, who that next customer is going to be, but you know, who are we getting and how are we getting them right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have, an anecdotal idea of who our target customer is, but then we're constantly looking at Google Analytics, and not only that, but your analytics by platform too, because you might reach a different customer on Google than you're going to on Facebook and Instagram, and your ads might perform differently kind of based on the platform. So I think you really need to look at those demographics by platform too, and then change your creative and your message and all of that based on that, and especially based on who you really want to be reaching.
So before we even get into any of the bells and whistles of digital advertising, I'm hearing you guys saying, and Freddie, I'll let you pick up on this right now too, is that you have to sort of have the structure, the bones. If digital advertising was a house, then we're talking about the framing of the house. You've got to get that first, and that is built on who are the current customers we have coming in digitally. Why is that happening? Where are our hotspots, and then how do we capitalize on that? Is that fair to say, Freddie?
Definitely. I think knowing exactly what these ladies have said, your demographics from your Google Analytics and things like that, getting very specific on those online behaviors is a great place to start. But then also take advantage of some of the technology they have, the artificial intelligence, to build upon that audience even further. So you can pinpoint your specific audience right now, but then let the computer learning pick up on other people that may have just moved to the market or may have just bought a house. They haven't necessarily made that first search yet for a new sofa for that house, but they have done other things along the line. So artificial intelligence could be a great tool as well.
And it's interesting because so many people, and a lot of the questions too, talk about struggling with budget and figuring out where to spend and how much. A lot of what the three of you are talking about, these initial steps, there's not a lot of investment here, right? These are inexpensive tools right at your fingertips. So that's something that I think is a great first takeaway here from everybody is it's almost like you're saying, take an assessment of where you currently are. If you're just getting into it or really want to understand it, take that snapshot of where you are and then build from there. Is that a fair starting spot? Throwing that out there for anybody. Go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah,
Kate?
definitely. I think where you are and also where you want to go too.
Okay. There's many places where we can go here, but the first section of questions that came in were about best practices, and I think we're already starting there with this is a best practice initially, but this is when people ask open questions like what ads are working, I imagine that's something that is just dependent company to company, ad to ad. But let's ask this: are there things that are working now, regardless of the channel, that you guys are seeing are the things that in this market right now, which is we've got a little bit of tough time driving people. We know that sales have gotten a little bit soft. So let me just ask that: are there certain things that are working right now that maybe were not as successful 6 months ago or a year ago? Kate, go ahead and start with that.
Yeah, I mean, there absolutely are. I think it depends, again, what your goal is. If you are just trying to get leads, I think that Google Shopping and Google Ads is probably the best bang for your buck. If you're trying to create brand awareness, I think that, Facebook and maybe OTT and some of these other display type options where you're getting a lot of impressions and you're not just trying to drive traffic is a really great thing. And I think that there's a lot of buzz around TikTok, and that actually is like a newer platform that seems to be doing really well as well. So again, it's identify what you're trying to do, but there is a platform that will work for every one of your goals. But I always go back to Google shopping and search as the thing that's going to get you the most leads, which, if you ask any retailer, they say their goal is going to be more sales.
So one of the questions, and this kind of fits with what you're saying, Kate, let me ask you, I'll throw this to Freddie at the moment. So then how do you prioritize? I mean, Kate just gave us a great list of these are, they've got her top ones and this is what we're looking at. How does a retailer prioritize? How do you know truly how to put your pecking order when it comes to digital advertising to be successful?
Yeah, so we have found that video by far works best, anything video. So OTT is something that I would put it very high in the list. Any type of native advertising that you can share that video out inside of articles that people are reading. I think as far as getting that pecking list in order, just looking at the inventory that is specifically available in your market with all of the products. So, a good digital agency should be able to show you projections and how far your budget would go in reaching those people, the behavior that you're looking for. They should be able to tell you a percentage of reach, basically, on multiple different products. And that's a great first point to go to as a retailer to try to figure out which strategies would best work for your business.
Love that. So that's great insight for if they're shopping for an agency or somebody to really help them out. Stephanie, how have you prioritized these? Obviously nobody has an unlimited budget that can just blast all these channels. How have you prioritized it to give other retailers an idea about an approach?
Really just by looking at past data. We have the opportunity to test a lot here. So we're constantly trying to test new things, test new platforms, and just seeing what that's resulting in for us. Obviously, number one in terms of sales, but also how many people are we reaching and things like that. And then also really trying to utilize first party data as much as possible. I mean, with the changes in digital we've seen over the past couple of years, potentially only going to change more with cookies and third party. Anywhere that we can utilize first party, we have a great email list. We've been starting some SMS. You can do custom audiences in Facebook. Like Freddie was saying, you can create lookalikes and similar audiences based off that. So definitely anywhere we can use our own data too has been extremely successful.
So Kate, let me ask you this then. Something Stephanie said was about testing. So for anybody out there that want to dabble there, let's say they've never touched TikTok. So how do you recommend that they test those waters, not in just an obligatory way, but in a way that can really bring back some of that ROI that you guys are talking about, or some of that analytics that you're talking about come back the other way? How should they test the waters in a digital channel that they've not really dealt with?
Well, I think, again, it comes down to determining exactly what your goal is or what you're trying to do with that particular platform. Something like TikTok is going to be higher funnel, more about awareness. So you're really trying to create content that is going to engage people. And so the more impressions that you can get and the more engagement that you can get is going to show success on TikTok specifically. The more people engage, the more it actually creates opportunity to get more impressions. Because if you have content that, like I said, gets a lot of engagement, TikTok is going to think that you are more relevant, so they're going to show you to more people. So I think that the best thing that you can do is create something that is fun and eye-catching that people are going to want to watch all the way through and then share or whatever else. And so really it's just going to be how much visibility you can get on a platform like that.
So Freddie, one of the questions that came in under this exact heading said, how should we experiment with digital? How would you answer that if a retailer was here asking that question?
I think experimenting is a great term, beta testing, whatever you want to call it. I think just going into it, video would be my bottom line. I think that goes back to exactly to what Kate just said. TikTok is the video platform. That's one of the things that we've all seen explode. So I think when you test, just keep video of your store and your customers in mind, no matter what that product is. As far as social media, a lot of people say, like, should I just be doing this myself? You know, should I be posting organically, that type of thing? Absolutely. And I think that's the best way to test. You can go in, especially on Facebook, and start to look at analytics of what post and what type of content is working the best. Before you spend a dime on any type of digital advertising, you can really drill down with those social media analytics and figure out what is resonating with your next customer. And then that's what you then goes into your ad.
Gotcha. And you know, it's a great point, because you also don't, because Kate, that was interesting what you said about TikTok. I mean, you don't just want to just throw something on there. I mean, you know, you even talked about that. This is also your chance, correct me if I'm wrong, but this testing is also your chance at a first impression. So if you're going to dabble the toes, it should be good, because it could also be something that might just, you know, absolutely be a dud. And Stephanie, I see you nodding. You agree with that? I mean, if you're going to do, like you said, you guys do a lot of testing, you've got to make sure that's quality going in, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because you have to think about that. Like you said, you could be reaching a new audience here. So you still need to, you know, stay true to the brand and the brand message and all that, and use some videos or use some content that has worked in the past before.
Gotcha. Now here's a question this is the FOMO question. There's always FOMO questions on these lists. And I'm going to throw this one out there. Either all three of you can jump in or whatever you tell me, but I love this question is, what are we missing that's out there? Are there digital opportunities out there to be successful in digital advertising that maybe you feel not being taken advantage of, that people are shying away from, that are just sitting there just waiting to be utilized? Throwing that one out there as a jump ball to everybody.
I'll start. I think OTT is one that's still confusing to people, and figuring out how to make that work for your store is there's all sorts of videos and stuff that you guys even have on the HFA library, just explaining the best practices and best ways to do that. And I think that's one that if you can learn about and really start to take advantage of, that's one that I think a lot of people are missing out on.
Okay, Kate?
You know, I don't think that there's a particular platform. I think that it's more of an approach. Don't be afraid to spend the right budget to test something. I think a lot of times people put too little money into something and don't give it the right chance. If you're going to try Pinterest, don't put, you know, $300 into Pinterest and then look at your results and say it didn't work for me. You need to work with your providers to talk about how big your audience is, what type of product or service you're trying to promote, and think about what budget is really going to get you the right kind of reach to get the results that you want. Don't be afraid. You know, we spent a lot of money on traditional advertising in the past, and I think that people feel like we can spend a lot less when it comes to digital, and that is true. You can spend less in digital than you had to in traditional, but you know, if you're doing Facebook, if you're spending less than $2,000 on a Facebook campaign, it's probably not going to get you a whole lot. So I think, you know, don't be quick to write something off if it doesn't work and you're not giving it the right shot.
So another, and don't underspend. Yeah, I get it. That's interesting. So Stephanie is one who has to fight for a budget, I'm sure. Have you been to that barbecue? Is that something that you've when you do your testing is like that? Have you had to really make sure that you have enough budget to make it viable?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we pretty much have some set budgets that we use by month, and we have some flexibility to determine where we want to spend that. So that's always a big question, right? What should I be spending, where, and how much? And I really think there's so many factors that's dependent on. You know, there's not a black and white answer when it comes to that. So you really have to look at your business, you know, what you're comfortable with and what's performing for you and your audience and everything else.
Well, and it's interesting too, because there's just the next section down these questions. It was interesting because there was a question that says, is there a good formula to establish a budget? So let's talk about that a little bit, because so many of the questions are surrounding budget, and I think that a lot of this is born out of that. You know, the traditional advertising that we've been slowly pulling people away from, you know, that they've been now dealing with much more of the digital, has been tough. And then trying to figure out where to balance that and allocate things where. So is there a best way that you guys would recommend for a retailer to, you know, formulate and establish a digital advertising budget to make sure that they've got a good structure there?
Yeah, so as a digital agency, whoever you're working with to get that technology to reach those people, they should be able, again, to give you those projections. So whereas with traditional media, it's always been that wide net broadcast. You don't really know how many people are tuning into the news or their demographics or anything like that. But now you can get very, very specific. Who is your next customer based on those analytics we've already looked at? What is it going to take to get that person to walk into the store? So from there, just looking at what's available as far as impressions to reach those people inside of your geography, your digital partner, your digital agency should be able to tell you exactly how much money it would take to have an effective campaign. So that's kind of where we start with our partners, is just walking them through, here's what it takes to get you to a 40% reach, a 50% reach, so on and so forth.
Okay, Kate?
I would add, I think I totally agree with you. It's dependent on a lot of things. So you definitely need to work with providers. There's not a very like straightforward answer to that. But I think that a good thing to keep in mind is that, you know, an average cost per click on Google search right now is $3. So if you think about how big your reach is and think about that $3 cost, I think that can give you, you know, a general idea of where to start. And to elaborate on your impression share, I think that you brought up a great point there, to get to 40%, to get to 50%, to know that I'm going to show up what percent of the time when people are searching furniture store near me. That is a straight math problem. So you can definitely ask your provider, what is it going to cost me to show up more frequently?
Now, Stephanie, you mentioned that you guys, obviously you have some latitude to try to spread it around in different ways, but so how would you suggest folks establish a budget, a framework?
I think you really need to start with the basics. Make sure you're doing things like that are free to begin with, you know, free, so to speak. Google My Business, posting organically on Facebook. Make sure you're covered there. With SEO, you know, make sure you're coming up when somebody's searching on your name. So I think it's really starting there, and those things can come with an investment too, in terms of the work that you're putting in on them. And then it's really thinking about your goals. I think, like Kate was saying, being retail and e-commerce, search and shopping are kind of your bread and butter. They're really low funnel, so you're typically going to see higher conversions there. So you really want to start there when it comes to your budget, and then if you have more to spend, work your way up to some of those more brand awareness platforms.
You guys don't realize how perfectly that as we have these conversations, you say a key word that just happens to be the next section of discussion here. And Stephanie, you said convert. Oh my goodness, there's so many questions about converting this digital advertising into sales. And let's face it, that's a big part of the success. You guys talked about, you know, having the clear goals and being able to measure. Well, this is clearly sales are one of the measurements. So a question came in that said, what type of content keeps customers engaged and converts them into sales? Now I know we're looking for a magic bullet here maybe, but I think that that's still a great question that everybody struggles with. So let me throw that one out there, and this time we'll start with you, Kate. So is there or is that an impossible question to answer?
I mean, yeah, it depends on your market and your audience and the platform that you're using. Of course, it depends on. I think that if you're looking at Google search, make sure that you are using quality copy in your ads that are matching the keywords that you're targeting. Those things are really important. Having, you know, your specials or your offers that are running at any time in your ad copy is really important. Don't just type those up one time and let them be. Those should be updated all the time. Look in the search terms that you have, and you know, mimic what you see people actively looking for when they're coming to your site. That's really important. When it comes to, you know, social, I think that the content's going to be a little bit different. You want something that people are going to relate to on a little bit more of a personal level. Like Freddie's talking about, you have a lot of opportunity when it comes to video, and we know that that is where people are starting to really spend a lot of their time engaging with social. So use the video, talk about your store, talk about your in-store product, talk about services that you have to offer. What are the things that set you apart, and make it personal. It doesn't need to be really, you know, generic. And I think that's where you're going to see the best engagement.
And that whole concept of converting into sales, what I hear you talking about there is this: you're building, in some ways, this digital advertising is building the relationship, right? Because that, and that's something I think that's so unique about it, because of the video aspect of it and all these other aspects you're talking about, it's so connective that it is really building that relationship. Freddie, am I overselling that, or is that true?
It's true. So yes, absolutely. The things that we say are be relevant, be educational, and be real. You know, it's not a day and age now where you have to hire this fancy production crew to do your content. Something on an iPhone that's very organic and real is what's working the best.
You know, and it's funny you say that, and I'm not a good example. I'm just throwing this one out here because it was, you know, I'm the blind squirrel that finds the acorn. There was no, I just put a video on a kind of a goof, put it on LinkedIn, just more of a professional video, but it was a subject matter, and I just felt passionate about it. It was just, you know, me on the phone, just did it, and it just the hits kept coming, and I'm like, you know, and why? It was not great quality. I'm not suggesting that I was that great on it either, but clearly it was connective in some way. You know, it doesn't take a lot of, you know, bells and whistles. I think it's really great. And also, Kate, I want to just pause for one moment to talk about something that you said. I've heard this said before. You mentioned about the copy. While so much of this is visual, I've heard it said that if your copy doesn't really sort of match the tone, the feel, everything, that if it doesn't somehow blend, it can actually be a detriment. Do you think that's true? Because I think a lot of people don't always concentrate on the copy piece of it as much as they do the visual piece.
Yeah, I think it's true for two reasons. One, you know, Freddie used the perfect word, relevant. If you're not using the right words, you're not relevant, and then somebody's going to look to the next thing that is more relevant to them. But two, the way that Google and its algorithm actually works is dependent on the copy in your ads. If the words in your ads are not matching very well to what people are searching for, you are not going to show versus a competitor who's doing it better. So that copy is incredibly important to make sure that you're showing to the shoppers.
So Stephanie did a little sidebar there, so I wanted to get back to what we were talking about a second ago. What are you seeing? And again, we're just trying to really glean this for other retailers watching. What are you seeing as really the content that you feel has really been helpful in converting to sales? That been the messaging or whatever it might have been that really has been successful?
I think it's really the differentiators. I mean, what's going to make your business different than the person down the street? What's going to make them come and shop with you? And I think when we're talking about online too, I mean, that just makes our competitors that much bigger, because we're not only competing with the furniture store down the street, we're competing with Wayfair and Amazon and everything in the middle now. So I think it's really making that difference and including that in your copy. And, you know, why should you click on this ad? And ultimately, why should you shop here? So I think that's the biggest thing.
And you know, but I think that sounds a little bit, in all due respect, I think that sounds a little more, you know, it's maybe simpler than it really is, because you know, so what does that differentiator look like? Is it just, it's not just, clearly in digital advertising, it's not just about that's the sale price on the item, but it's this relational piece. So talk a little bit about that. How do you truly differentiate when, like you said, it's a huge pot of possibilities out there.
Yeah, I think it's you know, like I said, what makes you different, and what's going to create that customer experience. Like for us, we have a no pressure sales environment here. Our salespeople don't work off of commission, and we get that in reviews all the time. People will say that we walked in the door, I didn't feel pressured, I wasn't attacked when I walked in the door. And so we are constantly talking about that in our videos and our commercials and our ad copy, and it's really coming through. I mean, our customers are seeing that too. So that's just one example. But it's things like that, why you would want to walk in the door and come here versus somewhere else.
I love that. And Freddie and Kate, I'll let either one of you jump on this initially. She's just said something really great. So they're looking at the reviews to see what are those things that are coming through as differentiators, and then now you're boosting it through your digital advertising. That sounds like gold to me.
Yes, definitely. That's definitely using like the analytics and all of the information that you have access to right now. Taking that a step further, Stephanie, that's really cool that you're using the analytics. You know, you probably use your Facebook, things that people are saying on your Facebook as well, and your Instagram posts and all of those different things to find those buzzwords that make you relevant to that next customer. So, yep, that's cool.
Yeah, you don't have to make assumptions about what you think people like about your business. Just use what they tell you they like about your business. And I think that even reposting some of those reviews that you get on Facebook are great too. You know, you can take those reviews and use them in different places so that people have visibility. You can highlight the things that are important.
Yep.
I just, you know, this is also another reason why we record these and put these online, is because I think I'm on page 2 of takeaways that you guys have come up with already. And it's just like we're clipping along here, and I looked at the clock. I'm like, we're halfway through, and we have a ton of great takeaways and more to talk about here. But I just love that, because there's so much information that you can just glean from your day-to-day business. That's the fuel for this. It's, you know, it's not, it's the, you know, it's the, you know, the horse in the cart, right? It's like you're not just going out doing this blind advertising or some anecdotal stuff like that, but it's like you've got this information right at your fingertips already. Use that and then invest wisely. That's kind of what I'm hearing you all kind of say as we kind of put this all together. A couple of things real quick. These are typical questions that we get that I think is great with a panel like this to ask. So frequency is also a question. You know, and I know you guys are nodding because you're like, these are impossible to give definitive answers on, but it's a question everybody asks. The frequency of posting on these different digital channels to have us to be successful. Is there honestly a rule of thumb? Does that just differ platform to platform? I mean, Kate, I can't imagine you don't get that question all the time. How do you answer that?
Well, I mean, there's definitely, you know, ad fatigue. So you go too high and then people start to tune you out, and too low, you're not getting your message across. I think that what we've heard in the past with traditional advertising, 3 is kind of that magic number. I think that can be carried over here just as a general rule of thumb. On Facebook, I think that it's okay if you're over a 3. I think in that, you know, 7 to 10 range is probably not a bad thing if you have a budget to support that. But I do think, like with video and other things like that, I still think that frequency of 3 is okay. But once you get over 10 on any platform, you're probably too high.
Yeah, we're talking about what time period? You say only 3. What are we talking about? Over? You talking about per day, per posting?
I would say per week.
Per week. Okay, that's what I asked, because there's some people. I mean, we've all followed them, right? I've got some that pepper me multiple times a day. But Freddie, that's the fatigue part that Kate's talking about, right? That's that delicate blend. What do you think frequency, if you're trying to give somebody an idea about frequency, what do you suggest?
So kind of as a technology partner and somebody who's executing these campaigns, we have a frequency cap of 24 on all of our products, so 24 times in a month. But then also, this is where those conversions come into play, right? So be sure whoever you're working with to execute these ads have conversion points in place, that you're not hounding someone with your ad if they've already clicked on your ad and done what they want, what you want them to do. So have frequency caps and have conversion tags. As far as just posting organically on social media, if we want to talk that direction, I could see this question going that way too. I think using the free tools that you have to post at least once a day, why not, right? It's free. But when it comes to ads, I think the frequency caps and the conversion tags are key.
It's like Mark might be frozen here. Well, I'm not sure if anyone else can still hear us. I don't know if we want to keep talking about frequency on these ads.
Do that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo what you both say. I would say anywhere from 3 to 6 a week, which is basically exactly what you both said. And I think when you're talking about scaling budgets, you definitely need to look at, you know, when that frequency is going up, are you getting more conversions or are you dropping off? And I think that's kind of a good sweet spot for spend too, back to that budgeting question. Which I know came up. So make sure you're looking at that, your partner is actually looking at that. And I agree on social. I mean, I think once a day, I think when you're talking about things like stories, you can post on there a lot more. You just want to be monitoring what's the most engaging content and what times of day and what platforms are getting the most engagement and all of that comes into play with those metrics.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because when you're doing it organically, you're probably not going to hit each person that's following you more than once in a day. But with your ads, you're actively targeting them. So I think that's why those frequency caps make such a difference when you're doing it through your paid advertising.
Mhm.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think you can post a lot with organic too, so you can get different messages and even in front of the same people versus your ads might be the same message showing over and over again.
Absolutely. Just the whole Facebook algorithm and how that's set up so that not everybody who's even liked your page ever sees that message. So I agree with what you said, that to organically reach them with messages and stories, that's a beautiful thing.
Can you guys hear me?
We can. Yes.
We can.
Wow. Freddie, you broke it. I don't know what happened, but you were apparently giving such amazing insight that literally in my ear, I just heard this loud buzz and my computer just crashed.
Oh, wow.
And that's never happened. So you're the first person who's ever broken a webinar. So thank you for that. But I love the fact that you guys continued on, and I appreciate that. And I don't want in any way to go over ground that you just have been covering here, but let's continue to work our way through here. I know we left when I left you, we were talking about the frequency and things of that sort. Let me ask you, as far as the fatigue, Kate, that you talked about, how real is that? Because I feel like there's a bombardment sometimes, and when any entity, and in this case a retailer, in some way goes over that limit, it can really be harmful. Is that true, or am I overstating that?
No, it's absolutely true. It gets to a point where it is seen as annoying, and so you get tuned out. In fact, if you think about the feature that Facebook has where you can turn off an ad because it is too frequent, that feature wouldn't exist if it wasn't a problem. So I think that just the fact that that is there alone tells us that you need to be careful, because people do not want to see it. They will take action to make sure that they don't see it. Don't give anybody a reason to turn you off.
Because once off, I assume it's really difficult to get them back.
Yeah, absolutely. All of a sudden, you're not relevant to that shopper anymore, and someone else might still be.
Yeah, I mean, Freddie, the term I've always heard used is you become noise, and that's when you lose it. Do you feel that same way? And if so, is that a real threat, as Kate talked about?
Definitely, yes, and that's why we, as a digital technology partner, have those frequency caps in place. But not only that, I think about so often, even just in everyday purchasing habits. Like, I go to an online site, I look at a T-shirt, I might go back and buy that T-shirt the next day, but I'm still seeing those ads for that stupid T-shirt, right? And that's where it becomes super annoying. So having those conversion tags in place really help you not to be annoying. You don't want to tarnish your brand by, like Kate said, just being spammy.
So Stephanie, I'm sure you guys are not annoying in any form or fashion, right? That's just not possible.
Yeah, right. No, not at all.
No, but I mean, do you guys consciously have your own cadence? I mean, when we got off there, and if you've gone over this, I apologize for repeating, but when we were talking about, kind of the rule of thumb that both Kate and Freddie talked about, what about y'all? Do you have specifics with how you approach each of your platforms and frequency?
Yeah. And I basically echoed what Kate and Freddie both said. About 3 to 6 per week, I think, is kind of the sweet spot. And I think that's why it's important to kind of work your customers through the funnel. And Freddie talked about a little bit about this before. Like, if somebody has clicked on your ad or they've added to cart, you don't want to keep giving them that same message. So think about that. You want to work the people through the funnel, people who've been to your website but haven't added to cart versus people who have added to cart but hasn't purchased. So you can think about things in that way too. That kind of helps you avoid that, hitting people too many times with the same irrelevant message. I know that's probably getting in the weeds a little bit, but we're always looking at things like that, and also running multiple creatives too. It's a good way to test, but it's also a good way to get different images and messages and graphics or videos.
Well, I know we often negatively use that term, in the weeds. Sometimes that's a bad thing. Let's face it, with what you all have talked about since we started this webinar today, you need to be in the weeds from the standpoint of understanding, what we're dealing with here. A great question came up that I just got to get your take on. And I know that a lot of these don't have definitive answers, but we're looking to giving some nuance here and really trying to help people out. How about the who part of it? So I got my team, who should be delivering some of these messages? It may be different on each platform, but is that I know some places where they like to have their design consultants or sales associates do some posting because they try to make it that personal. In other cases, it might be a key member of leadership. So Kate, talk about the who should be delivering these messages, and does that matter?
That's an interesting question. I think that, it depends on the platform. I think that Stephanie said something earlier that's really important, is make sure you stay true to your brand and make sure that you have some kind of consistency through your messaging. Of course, like Freddie said, also you want to be real. But I do think that there's a place for all of these people to share a message. And I think that the social outlets are probably the way to go with that sort of thing. Facebook is of course the one that comes to mind, but if you have a specific person trying to share a message, I think that it's going to have to be on social. It doesn't really make sense for them to necessarily do anything anywhere else. But a face or somebody that is relatable, that people can connect with, that's never a bad thing. But just make sure that that whatever is being said is relevant and makes sense to your brand and has a takeaway to it.
Well, I was just going to say that's the inherent danger, right? Is making sure it's on brand. Freddie, talk a little bit about that as far as the who can deliver these messages and maybe some of the thought patterns on how to manage that without it getting out of control.
Right. So I go back to the idea of testing, and Stephanie just said something about this. Social is a great way to make that testing happen basically free of charge, right? We all have phones that have great video quality, and we can film somebody, post it up, and with everything that we can find inside of analytics, figure out who might be the most relevant to that next customer, and then really make them the star of the show, if you will. So
are there concerns with too many people communicating to where it does take it off message?
I think having that go-to person, in my opinion, that is always the one making the post, scheduling the post, but having different faces. I don't know that, in my opinion, having multiple faces of the brand is a bad thing, but I think still having one person kind of in charge of social media, if you will, is the way to go.
Okay, and I take it. Hold on. That. Stop the feedback. Hey, did I do it? Am I back? Do you guys hear me?
Yep.
Good.
Hold on a minute. All right, do you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
And I can't hear you. So this is just fantastic today. Let me just see what I can do here, and I'm not sure exactly. Let's go over to here. Oh, maybe that's it. Let me move my. This is live at its best here. Just 1 second. Well, shoot, I should have stayed on the phone. If you guys can hear me, I think what I'm going to do is I will get back over onto the phone for a second. But let me take this to the next point when we talked about the who part of this whole thing. Do you want to have? You guys said it's okay to have people sort of spreading that message, and a lot of salespeople, and in all deference to retail sales associates and design consultants, is there a concern when their personality becomes more than the brand? If that makes sense, do you have to kind of make sure that they are not overwhelming the brand and becoming their own sort of rock star, if you know what I'm talking about? And I'll start with Kate. And Kate, even though I can't hear you, I'm going to make sure that I try to do that. But what are your thoughts on that?
I haven't really seen that be an issue. I mean, I guess in theory it could be. But if you think about, people moving into influencer marketing right now and how those are like celebrity type, big personality people that we use to promote a product, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. These people might gain their own audience and their own followers outside of your own brand. And so that just expands your reach. So as long as they're not making comments about the brand, that is not something that you would want out there. I don't think it's a bad thing, just because it creates opportunity.
Absolutely.
I think as long as your videos or, your content is on brand, like you were saying, sometimes that can be an advantage. If you have somebody with a big personality or something, sometimes that can work in a positive way, especially in social media. You'll have their friends on there saying, oh, I know them, or tagging them. You see a lot of that, especially, being local businesses. So I agree with that, Kate.
And I can actually hear you guys now because I got you through the phone and video here. Freddie, what are your thoughts on that?
I was going to add to that. Kate, you mentioned influencer marketing. Some influencers, like radio personalities in your market, those are even great assets just to use. Everybody's listening to morning drive, morning shows, radio shows in the morning, just personalities that connect with your brand. So you could also make them a part of that social content too.
And that brings up a great point. And Kate, you talked about this a little bit earlier. How successful can your campaign be if part of it is also driven by testimonials, by the actual customers themselves? You want to talk a little bit about that, because I know that's in some instances can be gold.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by including the testimonials in your marketing?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about these digital advertising, being able to somehow bring those testimonials to your digital advertising campaign and getting that out there so that they're not just hearing from, somebody who's part of the staff of the store, but hearing from a customer. Talk a little bit about that, because we've had some questions about that as well, about integrating those and how important those can be.
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways you can do it. On social outlets, you can take images or create like slideshow videos of different testimonials that you have. You might even be able to get a customer come on camera and do a testimonial for you if you have a good relationship with someone, and that is going to go a long way if you post it. Even through your Google or Microsoft advertising, you can put site links into your ads that will link people directly to testimonials on your website. You don't have to just let them live in one place. A lot of different providers will help you sync these testimonials to all of your different platforms that you're advertising through or that you have a presence on. So make sure that you're connecting everything. And consider the fact that the more that you have, the more it also creates relevance for your brand. So don't just rely on using the ones that you get in your marketing. Make sure that you're actively soliciting them on all of the different platforms that you're working on.
Love that. Freddie, that's powerful stuff, right?
It is. And it made me think of a line that I love that one of our partners used. They have a 5-star review on Google My Business. A bunch of 5-star reviews. So the overall number is 5 stars for them on Google. And that is the line that they use in their marketing. Come to us and have a 5-star experience. And then they just start popping up reviews on the screen. So I thought that was a very effective way to tie in everything we talked about right here.
And talk about free content creation. Holy smokes. I mean, you're letting the customer do it. Stephanie, I see you nodding. Do you utilize testimonials a lot of times, or at least those reviews, in what you're doing on the digital side?
Oh yeah, we do. I mean, we do a lot of work generating those reviews, like everyone was saying, and then we also utilize them. I mean, we use them for customer service. We reply to every single review, good or bad, that comes up. So just that aspect of it, and then we definitely use them in marketing. We make little graphics and post them on social. We'll take snippets and put them in it, reshare them or so. Absolutely.
I love this question that came in. This is a cry for help, in my view. How to convince leadership of the importance and usage of digital advertising. We know there's somebody that's struggling there. Freddie, I'll start with you on that one. So if you were to make if you're a marketer for a retailer and you want to make the case to leadership onto why this is important, how would you phrase it? Let's help somebody out here that's clearly got a little bit of an uphill battle.
Thinking about how to reach people, all of us as retailers and marketers got used to traditional media, and 2020 became the first year that you could reach more people with internet connected TV than cable. I think that line alone right there says a lot. Instead of just broadcasting a wide net like we used to do, now we have to get super specific. we can now behaviorally target and only spend money to reach the people that we know are ready to shop with us. So I think those are the points I would use.
That's gold. Kate?
Yeah, I think that in just about any form of advertising at this point, that where you're running paid advertising, you can get return on ad spend. And so I think that it's really the sales number that is going to speak to the head of a business. Really, it's always the bottom line is what am I getting in return? And you can do that now in every single platform. Sometimes it requires additional setup and it can be challenging and not every provider does it right off of the bat, but have that conversation about how you can track that. I think that's something that we're seeing happening more and more in Google ads as people are looking at store visits, which is now a metric that you can track in most accounts if you have a high enough volume. You can also track your offline conversions now. There is a way for you to be able to go back and get an estimate of your in-store sales from your ads campaign. And that's not something that always existed. But I think that if you want to show the effectiveness, show the return on your investment.
And let's, and you know, I kind of wanted to save this to this last little section here because it's you know, we started this conversation with, you know, clear goals, and then you really, all of you talked about very dramatically about measurements, things of that sort. So there's a ton of questions here about, you know, what are the, you know, what are the best KPIs? What are the things I should be looking for? You want to talk a little bit about that? And Stephanie, I'll start with you. What do you find are the most effective KPIs when it comes to really measuring for what you're trying to do, for the goals that you have? And also making that case to leadership that these particular campaigns work.
Yeah, so kind of a generic answer. I do really think it depends on your goals and what you want to achieve. But I think at the end of the day, it's always going to be sales and store visits, right? That's really our number one goal. But I think it's also things when you're looking at the website, like who's adding to cart, who is engaging with your store locator pages, who is visiting your Google My Business. So there's indicators like that that tells you someone's going to come in and shop with you and they're interested in you. So I think you have to look at it by your campaign. If you want to focus on brand awareness and reach new people, you need to look at those reach and impression goals. But at the end of the day, it's sales and who's walking through the door.
Kate?
Yeah, I agree. You know, ROAS, sales. But when I'm looking at any campaign, the metric that I always go by is conversion rate and cost per conversion. And I think that tells us what is the most efficient campaign. And that helps us determine, you know, where we're going to funnel some of our dollars. Again, especially right now, the question that we always get is, how do I get more sales? How do I get more leads? And it's going to be those lower funnel types of campaigns. And in those types of campaigns, you can see your conversion rate and your cost per conversion. And I think that those numbers are really telling from a digital perspective what's performing.
Freddie, you want to chime in real quick?
Yeah, I think as far as KPIs, just knowing that you can not only, like Kate said, track who's executing and doing these things, but you can track in-store visits as well. If you're geofencing, let's say, and using a mobile device, mobile conquesting, we always have our cell phones with us. So after someone sees an ad, a digital agency should be able to tell you if they step foot in your store. Likewise, Amazon, there's a technology now. Amazon is one of the only ways that you can take a list of existing or previous customers, upload that, and show OTT video ads only to those people. So thinking about a mattress, maybe it's people who came in and bought a mattress 7 years ago from you, and now it's time to get a new mattress. So you upload this list to Amazon, show them the ads, and then at the end of the month, you can kind of do a matchback report to say, Amazon tells you, these are the people who saw that ad, and then you can match that to your sales. What better KPI than to be able to have a one-to-one, you know, relational sale right there?
Awesome. Final thing I'd like to ask the three of you. And I'm going to put you on the spot here. And Stephanie, I'm going to start with you. So give this audience an example of one of those moments in one of your digital advertising forays where it came together and it really spoke to the viability of digital advertising. Everybody always gets those one or two where there's like, man, this just clicked, this just worked. Can you think of something that was like just golden, and so we can understand what was involved in it?
Let me think about that. So I think I really do think it's a mix of things, and I think it's a mix of testing a lot of things. I can't say that there's one secret sauce, and I think that it depends, what's going to work best for you and your business. I will say we've put a lot of effort into our feeds and pulling our feeds and getting those into Google Shopping, and definitely in the past year, we've seen a lot of hits on those. We have some products that we can drop ship, and we've seen people coming in from literally all over the country via Google Shopping. So I'll say that one has been, I think, the most surprising for all of us, that people are finding us this way that might not be our average customer.
See, thank you. That's a great answer. And so, Freddie, I'm going to go to you next. I mean, what I'm talking about here is that moment where it's just like you just go, yes. Like just like that work. Do you got one of your favorites? It's a great example.
Mine's more of a categorical answer, I think. So we've seen this work for a couple of different advertisers, in that now with Amazon, we've all gotten accustomed over the last couple of years shopping more so on Amazon. Most people are now getting their reviews of products on Amazon instead of first going to Google. So kind of taking that Google mindset, targeting those people on Amazon now as they go and they start to read reviews, and continuing to follow those people after they leave Amazon. Kind of works the same way that we were a couple years ago using Google, but just got kind of a more modern way to reach that same audience.
Okay, that's cool. Kate?
I think that, for me, it's being able to help clients get results that they're looking for that they're not getting. And the reason always comes back to the setup in your campaigns. I think that we, had one particular client who was saying, I'm not seeing anything in my e-com business. I don't understand why I'm not driving more sales online. And, all of the tracking was set up properly, but the way that the campaign was built in Google Ads was not aimed at an e-com experience. And that's okay, because things change over time. But if you set up your campaign 5-10 years ago and you're trying to switch into an e-com business, you have to change the way you set up your conversions, the way you tune your campaign, the types of keywords. And so going in and being able to pinpoint and say, these are the things that you can swap out, takes 5 minutes to make this change. And then all of a sudden you're making $50,000 a month in e-com sales. That's not a promise, but it can happen. I think that that's really important, just to understand that, I think that, Freddie, you touched on this in the first thing that you said, be willing to change with the things that are going on. You cannot remain stagnant. You have to test and change. And when you're willing to do those things, you're going to see great differences in your returns.
I love it. We have one quick question here, and we do a quick answer. I got time for it here. It says, with sales and traffic now declining, how can we promote without sounding desperate? Who wants to take that one? That's a jump ball. Anybody jump in? I love that question.
So I would say
start to capitalize on.
I'm sorry, Kate, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I think there's just a little delay that I'm having now. I think that, the message that we see working is we have product in stock and we have free shipping, and those are the things that really get people. It's, I'm going to save, I can get it today and I don't have to pay $500 to get it delivered.
Keep it easy, exactly. Hey, listen, first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for joining us, but we're not leaving just yet, but I want to thank everybody for joining us. And this has been a trying moment, and this is a great panel that was able to go without me. This is how you're hearing me, is through my phone. There, all four of us are. Video through here, because when the computer crash, it didn't happen. So this is the magnificence of today's communication channels. We can cobble this thing together and somehow it works out. So I wanted to let you know that I appreciate you guys being so patient. But I want to thank Kate Gallagher, Vice President of Client Success at Phelps Digital. Kate, you've been awesome. Thank you so much. Stephanie Geary, Marketing Manager for Old Brick Furniture. You guys are clearly doing some really cool things there, and thank you for sharing a lot of your insights. And then Freddie Wright, Digital Director with Conquest Digital Solutions. I appreciate that. And I do believe we have one closing slide. We do. You can check out other resources to help with your digital marketing. Go.myhfa.org/digital. It'll take you there. We've got great stuff. Don't forget myhfa.org/webinar. You can get this webinar plus any number that we've put out in the past with some great insights. But I want to thank the three of you very, very much for joining us, and again for your patience in the technical issues today. But as I always like to say, I want to wish everybody terrific health, great sales, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Mark Schumacher on behalf of the entire team here at HFA. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.